CGTN, China Global Television Network. Live from London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Paul Barber. Our top stories this hour. At least 51 people have died, including 10 children in 2 transport accidents in Pakistan. Israel's new government calls for looser gun laws and the death penalty for attackers after a weekend of violence. The chairman of Britain's ruling Conservative Party is sacked following an inquiry into his tax affairs. And a year after being deported over a vaccination row, Novak Djokovic makes history at the Australian Open. In Pakistan, at least 51 people have died in 2 separate transport accidents. A bus fell into a ravine and caught fire in the south of the country, killing 41 of its 44 passengers. And in a separate incident, at least 10 children died when a boat carrying religious school students capsized in the Tanda Dam in Pakistan's northwest. Our correspondent Daniel Khan has more now from Islamabad.
Well, Paul, the accident took place in the wee hours of Sunday when the bus was travelling to Karachi from the city of Quetta when it plunged into a ravine and caught fire. The death toll from the incident has now risen to 41, while 3 wounded have been taken to the hospital and they are in critical condition. And the assistant commissioner of the area told local news that the bodies could not be identified due to the extent of burns, and therefore DNA tests will be carried out. The police say the accident happened due to overspeeding as the bus went out of control of the driver and swayed into the ravine. Paul.
And Daniel, another tragic incident resulted in the deaths of 10 children. What details do we have about that?
Yes, rescue officials that I've spoken to say the children drowned when their boat capsized in the Tanda Dam Lake in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa's Kohat city. Reportedly, bodies of 6 children have been recovered, while 17 children and a teacher were rescued. 4 children are in critical condition and are undergoing emergency treatment. Children were all from the madrasa in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, and they were out on a day trip to the dam. Mass drownings, we know, are common in Pakistan, as we know that 18 women drowned when an overcrowded boat carrying a wedding party across the Indus River capsized last year in the city of Rahim Yar Khan.
Daniel Khan reporting there from Islamabad. Israel's new government says it will make it easier for civilians to carry guns following 2 separate attacks in Jerusalem. 7 Israelis were killed near a synagogue on Friday, and 2 people were wounded near the Old City on Saturday. The government wants to strengthen settlements in the occupied West Bank. The Security Cabinet has approved new measures, including depriving an attacker's family of residency and social security rights. The Palestinian Authority says the plans are racist collective punishments that incite further escalation.
We are not seeking escalation, but we are prepared for any possibility. Our answer to terrorism is an iron fist and a powerful, swift and precise response.
And with more, our correspondent Stephanie Freed reports from Tel Aviv.
Victims of Friday night's shooting spree outside a Jerusalem synagogue were laid to rest on Sunday. The 21-year-old Palestinian assailant was shot dead by police at the crime scene. As a form of collective punishment, his family's home was sealed shut within 24 hours of the incident. In a second incident, a 13-year-old Palestinian boy shot and wounded an Israeli father and son on Saturday in occupied East Jerusalem. He was shot during the attack and is in police custody. In the wake of the weekend violence, Israel's farthest right-wing government in history is calling for punitive measures to be taken against families of assailants, as well as proposing the death penalty for attackers. Government ministers are also calling for, quote, strengthening Jewish settlements on occupied Palestinian land. While Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu urged Israelis not to take matters into their own hands, he and his ministers expedited gun licensing laws.
I want people on the streets. I want citizens of Israel to be able to defend themselves.
The weekend violence followed an Israel Special Forces operation in the occupied West Bank town of Jenin that killed 9 Palestinians and wounded dozens of others. Israeli officials say operatives targeted Palestinian militants planning an attack in Israel. Stephanie Fried, CGTN, Tel Aviv.
British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has fired the Conservative Party chair Nadhim Zahawi after he was found to have broken the ministerial code. Sunak ordered an ethics investigation after it emerged that Zahawi had paid a penalty as part of a reported $6 million tax bill to UK authorities during his time as Finance Minister. Our correspondent Andrew Wilson is here with more now. So how did this all come about, Andrew?
Well, this was a quick investigation by Sir Laurie Magnus, who is the ethical advisor to the Prime Minister, into Nadhim Zahawi's tax affairs. To be honest, no one is particularly surprised that he was fired this morning. It didn't look good even towards the middle of last week. The report came 7 o'clock this morning to the Prime Minister saying whilst Mr Zahawi did cooperate with the tax authorities, as far as Laurie Magnus was concerned, he showed insufficient regard to the ministerial code, particularly in terms of being an honest, open and exemplary leader. What he's talking about there is that April last year, the tax authorities came to Mr Zahawi and said, look, we need to talk further about your tax returns, and as far as that's concerned, they were now investigating him. He didn't report that investigation. He failed to declare the investigation at all to the Downing Street authorities or to the government at the time. Even when he was promoted to Education Minister, he said nothing, and even when he was promoted to Finance Minister, he said nothing. When he finally settled with the tax authorities, he failed to declare that as well to the Downing Street authorities. So they were still in the dark, they say, about this financial goings-on. And then finally, when Rishi Sunak became Prime Minister, he failed to mention any of this to him when he was made party chairman back in October 2022. So it seems that Mr Zahawi is trying to run parallel careers, his career as a businessman and his career as a minister, without allowing the two to interfere with each other, which, according to the ministerial code, is wrong and should not be allowed, and is not indeed allowed.
And the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, has taken action now. He has fired him. But what does this whole affair tell us about his judgment?
Well, the jury's still out in that respect. I think it was... There are plenty who say, including opposition politicians, of course, who said that the moment this came to light, that Nadhim Zahawi should have been at least recused from his job while the investigation went ahead, rather than get defensive comments from the Prime Minister saying, you know, innocent until proven guilty, let's see how it goes, and so on and so forth. But in the end, when Sir Laurie Magnus did report on Nadhim Zahawi's circumstances, the Prime Minister did move very quickly. He got the information, as I said, 7 o'clock this morning. By 8 o'clock this morning, he sent a letter to Zahawi firing him, relieving him of his post. Direct enough, tough enough for his critics to say, look, he does have what it takes to be a Prime Minister. When things go wrong, he can move decisively. But there will always be others who say, why didn't he just go with his gut? Why did he have to wait for an ethical advisor to bring it all together? Why couldn't he see what was going on and the disgrace potentially it was bringing to the party and act more decisively last week and take the credit himself for making this decision, rather than having to be told by a so-called ethical advisor? Now, there are those that say that whilst Mr Sunak is very conversant with economic detail and inflation and tax and all those kind of issues, as a former businessman himself, he hasn't yet managed to prove to the party that he has what it takes to fight in the rough and tumble of Westminster, which can be a very brutal pool to swim in. And this time round, he has fired Nadhim Zahawi, but there are still those who say perhaps he should have acted a bit tougher and a bit more quickly. So they'll be watching to see how this goes. Nadhim Zahawi has also flagged up another issue, that he was completely unapologetic about what went on with his tax affairs, which may lead some to believe that there's a culture within government that these things are supposed to be allowed to be carrying on. And if that's the case, will investigators, critics of the government, opposition politicians start looking for other members of government who might be equally guilty? All that makes it more uncomfortable for Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister.
Andrew Wilson, thank you so much. Novak Djokovic has won a record-equalling 22nd tennis Grand Slam singles title, beating Stefanos Tsitsipas in the Australian Open final. 12 months after being deported from Australia over a COVID vaccination row, Djokovic beat his Greek opponent in straight sets, saving set point in the second. As well as moving level with Rafael Nadal for Grand Slams, the victory is also a record-extending 10th Australian Open triumph for the 35-year-old. He will return to the #1 world ranking on Monday.
I try to pinch myself and really live through these moments, and it's a long journey. I know this is also a long talk from my side, but bear with me, guys. I just have to say this because only the team and the family knows what we've been through in the last 4 or 5 weeks, and this probably is the, I would say, biggest victory in my life, considering the circumstances.
The Lunar New Year celebrations continued in Madrid this weekend. The annual spring race took place in the Spanish capital, with all the proceeds going to a worthy cause. Ken Brown reports.
And they're off. It might be a cold winter morning in Madrid, but that hasn't dampened the spirits of thousands of runners pounding the streets of the capital. This is the annual spring race, organised as part of the city's Chinese Lunar New Year celebrations. Last weekend saw a huge parade, and today it's a charity race. The festivities will finish next weekend as the capital celebrates its strong links with its Chinese community. The race is also intended to try and promote Madrid as a tourist destination for those coming from China.
This is a very important year for Spain and for us, for the Chinese people who are living here. And we are happy that we are living in a very good moment of diplomatic relation.
All proceeds from this race will be donated to the charity NGO Reforesta. They are dedicated to reversing the effects of desertification by planting trees and vegetation in vulnerable areas. Desertification is a major issue in Spain. Leading experts have said that if there is no action on climate change, the majority of the country could become desert by 2050. Non-governmental organizations like Reforesta are trying to recover and regenerate land affected by extreme weather conditions. Back in Madrid, the race attracted all ages and people were in festive spirits.
I loved the race. It was really cool, and I had so much fun with all my friends here today.
I wanted to enjoy the cultural experience, the Chinese New Year. It was the first time I ran this race, but I wanted to try it.
2023 is also the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Spain and China. There are a number of cultural events planned in the months ahead to celebrate this milestone. The Year of the Rabbit, it seems, has got off to a great start. Ken Brown, CGTN, Madrid.
Well, bright costumes, dancing dragons and beating drums. Thousands in the French capital have also been celebrating Chinese New Year in a colourful parade. The traditional Parisian parade is returning after 2 years of COVID disruptions. The city has been holding 2 weeks of festivities to usher in the Year of the Rabbit. And that is the world today. Thank you for watching. We're on smart TV apps, Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire and Android TV, YouTube and Dailymotion, CGTN.com and the CGTN app. And in the UK, 24 hours a day on Freeview. There will be more news at the top of the hour. Coming up next, though, it's a special extended programme. We're in conversation with the bridge builders, the people forging ties between China and Britain. But for now, from all the team in London, goodbye.